you are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach, and although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson-Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And if you read the title to today's episode, the 10x leap, and you thought to yourself, there is no way I can 10 times leap in my company, well, I dare you to listen to today's episode. I want to welcome Steve Walsh to the show. He's more than an entrepreneur or a venture capital investor. He's a force that redefines the boundaries of what is possible. He has over 25 years of financial and investment expertise. He has crafted a career of bold decisions and innovative strategies. His journey, which includes successfully navigating the turbulent waters of risk and reward, ultimately led him to establish Bison Equity Group, a venture capital firm committed to empowering entrepreneurs. Now, Steve's influence extends far beyond his professional achievements. He's an inspiring figure whose genius zone has always been in helping others see a bigger vision for what's possible, embrace their higher potential, and make their own leap towards success. Now, through his book, Make the 10 Times Leap, Steve continues his mission to help entrepreneurs see their company's scalability factor while also guiding them through what it takes to get it done. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thanks, Kim.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you the question right out. Is it possible to do 10-time leaps in your business?
Oh, definitely. You know, the thing is, I think there's a lot of people that they get into this zone of being comfortable. And so they don't look outside themselves. And so they're in it when they could be out of it. And so I try to do is bring that. I come in, work with them to see what they have for potential. And a lot of business owners, they just can't get out of their own way sometimes. And so, and and that's one of the things that I work through with business owners is just to say, hey, it is possible 10x. It's not easy, but it is possible. And so one of the things is, what strategies do you need to put in place? What people do you need to hire? People are so afraid to hire people. And I always say, why don't you bring in the people that are smarter than yourself? Those are the things that you really want to look at. And then when you're scaling, putting systems in place, and then don't be afraid to take outside capital. So many people say they're afraid that they're going to lose control of their company. But when you bring outside capital, you bring in other things besides that. You bring in mentorship. You bring in resources that you probably never had. So systems in place that a lot of times venture capital firms have people, systems that they've already worked with other companies that they can bring into the fold with their company. And so a lot of times people are, they're in this, I'd say it's a zone of, they're just being very comfortable. And I just say, do something different, try something different than what you've been doing. And I think that's the one thing that, and find some mentor that can maybe have done something better than, maybe have done something not even in your field.
Yeah.
I've had a good story where a buddy of mine had a restaurant. It was a sushi restaurant, and he was a sushi chef. That's where he started, and he started it, and he was struggling. He was doing 80 hours a week. Yeah. Couldn't see his family. Didn't see his family, and he struggled with hiring the right people. And finally, what did he do? He found a mentor, and a mentor said, hey, do you want to be a sushi chef or do you want to be a business owner?
Yeah, true.
That was the biggest thing. That was the biggest step, I think, is that. And so what he ended up doing is hiring smarter people than him. And he went from one restaurant to 8 within a very short time. And so that's where I look at stories like that and working with entrepreneurs that, you know, there is a possibility, because you just got to get out of your own way.
I love that you said that, Steve, because I think, like, one of the things I did this summer was I've been working with certain specialists to develop out a new product line. And I knew I needed help with it. It's not that I wasn't capable of doing it, but I knew that I couldn't see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed outside perspective. And so I chose specialists in different areas to work with, you know, to develop out this new product line, which will be going, well, audience, you're listening to this in December, so it's probably going to be going live January. And, you know, it was really helpful. Like, the process of working with these people gave me clarity that it wasn't that I didn't know these things, but I was able to now really prioritize what my clients were seeing as the priority. And so it changed how I was able to speak to potential clients. It changed how, you know, how I communicate with them. It's changed some of my messaging. Like, it's changed a lot of things, and it's all been good and positive. And it's because I brought in that outside help. And I loved what you said about, you know, hiring people that are smarter than you. And one of the things that I've seen and I've tried to do in RTI Publishing is that when I hire someone to join the RTI Publishing team, I want them to specialize in something. And I want them to be a specialist in it. And if they're way better than me, amen, hallelujah. Because the reason I'm hiring them is I don't have time to do all this stuff myself. And I want really good, strong people. And I can remember when I had my first book project manager, and it was really funny because she was my best friend. And she's a very details-oriented person, and I'm a very go-with-the-flow person. So it was always interesting, her and I are trying to work together, because she wanted to plan everything to the nth degree before doing something. And I'm like, let's just start, we'll figure it out on the way along.
Right.
But one thing I realized in that process was that I couldn't micromanage her, first of all. But secondly, she had skills, talents, and abilities that I didn't have. So when I bring on somebody new into the company, sometimes I have to show them how to do things, right? Like how we do it at RTI Publishing. But then we have the discussion, and the discussion goes like this. Listen, I'm showing you the way I do it. I'm showing you the way that makes sense for me to do this and get it done. But you're a lot better at this than I am. So take what I've shown you, redesign it, make it work the way it's going to work best for you, and go for it. And this is what I say. I said, you can change things up any way you want, as long as you achieve the result I need, and as long as the way you do it is morally, ethically, and legally good. Beyond that, change it up whatever way you want. Except if it's going to cost money, that you have to ask me about first. And it's worked well, because I'm letting them work in their zone of genius. I do not need to control everything. As long as the results are happening and, you know, there's nothing morally, ethically, or legally wrong with what they're doing, why would I hire a person who's smarter than me in that area and then handcuff them?
Right. Right. I totally believe that, because that's, you know, one of the things I see a lot with entrepreneurs. You have the one that, you know, he was the innovator. He was the one that the visionary, and then he created the product. You know, that was the one thing is then he's trying to figure out, or he or she's trying to figure out, how do I get it out to the public? And a lot of times their weak spot is marketing.
Yes.
I would say probably 80% of the time I see companies that they feel that they have a great product, but they just can't share it to the world. And I love marketing, because as Peter Drucker has always said, there's two things: innovation and marketing are the two things. Everything else is a cost. And I believe that is the thing that I look at is, if you look at people, marketing is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to switch gears here, Steve, but just before we do, audience, that time again, check out our quick 15-second commercial on one of the free resources that we offer at RTI Publishing that is going to help you publish a book that converts readers into clients, and then you use that book to scale your business.
One of the keys to becoming an author is hiring the right publisher. It's the difference between having a book that converts readers into clients and one that sits unused on a shelf. Check out 7 questions to ask before hiring a publisher. Get it free at authortoauthority.com/publisher.
Welcome back, Steve. Let's get into this a bit. I do want to hear a bit of your story as well, but
Yeah.
I really want to go a little bit deeper into this 10x leap. So what are some of the main things that, an entrepreneur has to have in place to be able to do that 10 times leap?
Well, most, like I had said, most of them they start with a lifestyle business and they're comfortable. Now, all of a sudden, how do they get to the next level? And so that is putting in systems in place, hiring right people. Now, the thing is, a lot of times people just go ahead and hire anybody. Mm-hmm. I always say you have to put the right people on the right bus. And when you put those people on that bus, you actually have to tell them, like you just said before, you got to train them on what the values, mission of your company is. Because a lot of times, if you don't do things like that first, they're going to go off on their own, thinking about how they can grow the business for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so you need to have everybody on the same boat, on the same bus, going the right direction. And then also on top of that, marketing. Marketing's so important. And when it comes to marketing, I think people think, well, I'm doing a lot of stuff on social media. And that's all they can think about. And there's so many other ways that you can do marketing. You can do direct mail, which people are not doing. And I believe that if you have a great message, direct mail can be a something that you can use. But there's these levers that you can pull that are not cheap, but they're not expensive to get to that next level. But the more things that you push out there, the more content you push out there to your clients, and know your customer.
Yeah.
I think that's the most probably, people think they know their customer. And I've met a lot of entrepreneurs that think they know their customer and find out that who they're marketing to is completely different person. And so what they need to do is really understand where that person goes, what they do for a business, what is it their dreams, a lot of their pain points, and a lot of the things that they need to almost sit down for a day or two with their team and work with, trying to figure out who their customer is. Because I always say it's easier to keep a customer than it is to get a new customer.
True.
And so, and I always, and it's kind of one of the things where if you're already in their house or in their business, what other services can you offer them? Those are the things you have to really look at too. If you're offering one service, your competitor is probably going to be offering 10 services. And so that's where you have to look at what your competitor is doing. You really have to look at what else can I do that they're not doing?
Yeah.
And so 10Xing it's basically putting in systems, people, and then marketing, and then capital. The other thing I see is a lot of people try to bootstrap it, and it really slows them down. They tend to do is chintz on the marketing side, chintz on the number of employees they bring in, or the systems that they bring in. That's probably the biggest thing. And simple systems, like the bookkeeping or bringing in an assistant. What I always say, try to stay in your genius zone. Yeah. So when you're continually doing things that's not in your genius zone, you're continually doing things that really are probably slowing you down.
Yeah.
So my big thing is assistant is probably one of the most important things to have in your company, just because of all the things that you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing.
True.
I
had somebody explain it to me like this once. Say, if you're working in your zone of genius and you had unlimited time, let's say you could even make $50 or $100 an hour. But for some people, it might be $200, $300, $500 an hour if they could just work in their zone of genius. But you're doing work that drains your soul and you hate doing, you don't do well. But there's people out there who are genius at it, who will gladly do it for $10, $20, $30 an hour. And if you gave them that work and you worked in your zone of genius, so let's say you make $100 an hour and you're paying someone $30, you're still making $70 an hour, and you're focusing in on what you love and what you're good at, and you're blessing someone else who really loves doing the other thing. Because that's the thing, if you find someone who loves being an admin, because not everybody is an entrepreneur, not everybody wants to be in front. Some people like being the admin in the back. Some people love being the admin in the back, and they're very good at it, right? And you could pay them $30 an hour or whatever, then you're actually growing your business. It's not a cost. It's actually, you're actually getting a whole lot more ROI on it.
Yeah, that's so true. Going back to what I was saying about capital, I think that's the other thing is people are so worried about bringing in outside investors because the problem is they don't want to give up the control. But there's a lot of strategies you can use and a lot of things that venture capital will do to bring in capital that will keep that person, that entrepreneur, comfortable where they're at, as the control, and then, but also being able to scale their business with that capital. The one thing is, a lot of times when people bring in capital, then they decide what do they need to, how do they need to deploy it, and that's the other thing is where venture capital comes into play. Is a lot of times they'll help them work with them on deploying where they see the best leverage to pull. That's bringing in more people. Is that bringing in a different system? Is that bringing in a better marketing plan, or maybe just a marketing person? And so those are the things that you really work with that venture capital.
So let's go a little deeper into this, because I think you've hit on like one of the biggest fears, and that is the control. So can you talk a little bit more about how that works and how the control does work? Because obviously, if they're making a financial investment, there's some say. So what does that look like? Typically,
an investor will come in. One of the things is they have to get investor ready. Is that's the pitch decks, everything associated with that. And then what you do is you bring in investors. A lot of times, entrepreneurs will just go ahead and just go and find any investor. And that's probably the worst thing you could do, because the problem is you have investors that maybe want their money back in 3 years. Well, the entrepreneur is thinking 7 or 10 years. And so you have a big push on the investor to get this moving. And so when you look at the type of investor you want, and then on top of that is what type of controls you want to put in place. For instance, a lot of times venture capital, they'll take maybe 25, 40% it'll be under that 51%. And so they won't take a majority stake in it. So the entrepreneur. I will say one thing though, sometimes entrepreneurs will potentially could butt heads with the venture capital. One of the things is, they maybe want to go one direction and the venture capital firm wants to go in another direction. So that's something that they really have to talk about up front before they even go and raise money because of that. Because it can be then it's a partnership that it won't work. And so it's just a matter of understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish and making sure that the venture capital firm or investors, it doesn't have to be venture capital, it could be an investor, understands how they work. I always try to run a psychologist through with the entrepreneur just to see what their their mindset is or how they work. If in that way I can understand of what that person's about and how they think. That's the biggest thing is when I run them through something like that gives me an idea of who they're about, how they think, and how they think about their business, how they think about employees, and if they're going to be a good fit. That's the other thing is too. Sometimes I've walked away just because I knew we weren't going to be a good fit, and that will tell me right away if we're going to be a good fit or not. And then entrepreneurs can decide going forward is what level do they want me to come in and give them as a mentor, as bringing them, what can I bring in? The systems in place. Can I bring in people? Do they need, that's the thing. I've done that numerous times where I bring in contractors or consultants to give them some more expertise. So need some expertise in one area. So
that is awesome. I am going to shift gears here because I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about your book. So Make the 10 Times Leap. So first of all, Steve, take a minute or two and just share with us, what is the book about?
So it is Make the 10X Leap, and it's for entrepreneurs. It gives them this is a book for people that want to grow their business. This is not for the person that has a lifestyle business that wants to stay in a lifestyle business. This is a book that will give them the tools. And it's, like I said, it's the same stuff that I've been talking about, is where it talks about scaling up. But it also talks about the mindset of the entrepreneur, how they have to potentially change the mindset from where they were talking. A good example is the sushi chef to now it's the business owner. Yeah. And so they have to think about, what are they going to be? Are they going to be in the business? Or are they going to be working on the business? Yeah. And so and then it talks about if you're going to raise money, what do you need to do? What do you need to do to raise money? What is it that the scalability, do you have the scalability? Is it a scalable company? And it talks about that in the book too, is what is your scalable factor? I have on my website, you can go and there's a test that you can take that's kind of that gives you that scalable factor. But that's the thing it talks about in the book is what is your scalable factor? And then from there, it gives you ideas about how you can scale your business, bringing in outside people. How do you look at bringing in outside people? How do you bring systems in place? And then how do you bring in, on top of that, marketing? Marketing is probably the one thing I would say is what I think is majority of the time, if you look at a company, somebody will say to me, they're a dog company, they sell products online. I say that they're a marketing company first, and then a pet company second. Yeah. And so they have to think about that. If they're a marketing company, what do they do? How do they present themselves out there? And so I go back to that, and then it talks about capital. The types of capital that are out there that's available depends on your business. There's some other, you can bring borrow money, you can bring investors that you give them debt, or you can bring in investors that have equity. I prefer equity, but some investors want just debt. And so they can do that. In this environment, debt's a little expensive right now, but it is something that you can do. And then it talks about from there is, what's it look like when you 10x your business? What do you want to do when you 10x your business? I say, sell your business, or what is it that you want to do? You want to grow it. If you 10x it from there, where do you want to go? Yeah. And how does that look as an entrepreneur? How does that look in your life? As how do they perceive themselves? Before they were perceiving themselves as just struggling entrepreneur. Now they've done really well, and they've had all the toys, they have all that. And so now it's, again, what happens is they become comfortable again.
Yeah.
So then you have to really reassess about, do I still want to be in this business? If I can take myself out of the business and bring some more people in the business.
Yeah.
And I've seen that where business owners will just all of a sudden, they'll be the one going to their lake house and they have a company manager or a CEO that's running the business. So they really don't have to be in the business.
Yeah. I'm going to switch gears here, Steve, because we've only got a few minutes left. And I want to make sure that I ask you the question that I ask every single author that comes on the show. So what was the good, the bad, and the ugly about writing, editing, and publishing that book?
Well, I would say, I tell people this, it was the most challenging thing I've done, in the sense that it took me a year. And the only reason it took me only a year, to me, it seems like that was a short time, is that I hired a coach that actually helped me, pushed me. He gave me timelines to be, where I had to be. And he really pushed me to get it done. Otherwise, I would have been here probably another year. And the idea is that when you write for me, when I wrote this book, I finished it, the majority of it, I finished it in June. But the next 20% was the hardest 20%.
Yes. Yeah.
It's all the little things that you have to do, that you don't think about, that all of a sudden getting the words on the page were great, but then you have to do the graphs, and you have to do a lot of the, getting the forward done, and a lot of the things that you don't think about when you're doing a book.
No.
And so it was but I tell you what, it was, when I finished it and I saw what it looked like, I was like extremely happy. And so when anybody, my big thing is, any business owner that does not have a book, think about writing a book. Yeah. I believe that it's one of the number one things you can do in your business to make yourself different. I
agree. Steve, if people have enjoyed today's episode, how can they connect with you?
Yeah, so they can get on LinkedIn, Facebook, or they can go to my website, which is bisonequitygroup.com, or and I have a resource page there they can go to that has some great tools they can use. And actually it has another chapter in there that I didn't put in the book. So they can go to that. And the Bison Equitygroup.com is a great place to go. Or they can go to bisonequitygroup.com and also reach out to me.
Thank you so much, Steve. This has been a wonderful episode. Audience, if you enjoyed today's episode, I want you to scan back a little bit to episode 424, How to Differentiate Yourself by Satisfying Your Clients' Deepest Desires, with Raul Hernandez. So if you are watching this on YouTube, the thumbnail will be here somewhere. Click on the thumbnail and you can go to that episode. If you're on that podcast app, you're going to want to scan back about 30 episodes, and I promise you it will be another amazing episode that's going to help you move your business forward. Audience, thank you so much for listening. It is a joy and a pleasure and an honor to be able to do this podcast for you. Have a great day, everyone, and we will see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Thompson-Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.